Koré and Trey stood behind the Welton Company members on the side of the stage. Koré tried to look out to see the crowd, hoping to lock eyes with Audra for a bit of comfort, but she couldn't see through the people in front of her, especially with the gargoyle being one of them. The anticipation of what was about to happen on that stage sent a chill through her body. River wanted her that close for a reason. "You alright?" Trey whispered behind her. "I'm worried," Koré whispered back. Anvil walked out onto the stage, and the people in the crowd talking amongst themselves grew louder and louder with each step he took. There was a podium in the front of the stage, and Anvil approached it. Everyone in the crowd grew silent the moment he adjusted the mic. "On behalf of Mr. Welton and the Welton Company, I would like to welcome all to this fundraiser and offer our gratitude for your donations." The crowd clapped, and Anvil gave them time to quiet down. "My name is Anvil. I have worked for the Welton Company for over 10 years. Like many of you, I am passionate about our community and the future of our planet. No one is more passionate about those things than Mr. Welton himself. Magic is a part of our everyday lives. Magic keeps our planet going." "This is going to be so good." Raisha had a big smile on her face as she turned to face the others. "Try to control yourself," replied River. "I'm in control. I'm so in control." Raisha pointed to her own face to remind River her mask was off. "First time ever I'm in control." "The safety of this magnificent resource that has been bestowed upon us has always been our priority," continued Anvil. "So without further ado, I would like to welcome those who contribute the most to keeping that resource safe." The crowd grew into a frenzy in anticipation, most of them knowing that the Welton Company members were coming out, others excited to potentially see Mr. Welton for the first time in years. Our first guest hardly needs an introduction. His size speaks for itself, and he hardly ever speaks. Please put your hands together for the Gargoyle. The gargoyle walked out slowly, and the crowd cheered. He stopped just behind Anvil and folded his arms. "Next we have the goddess of water herself, the reason Novesa will never experience a drought, River." River walked out onto the stage and was surprised by the welcome she received. The crowd cheered much louder than they did for the gargoyle and made her feel like her popularity wasn't as far off from Jagger and Raisha as she initially thought. It was her first time at a large public event without her mask on, and it made her feel like she was naked on the stage. Now that Raisha had her mask off, Mr. Welton felt it was a smart time to show their faces more. "Ladies, I ask that you please control yourselves for the next guest." Anvil's words only made the women cheer louder. "Please welcome to the stage, Jagger." Jagger walked out onto the stage with his suit jacket over his shoulder. He never wore the jacket part of his suit anyway, but he did this just for show. The women in the crowd were exceptionally deafening. One of them yelled, "His mask is off! His mask is off!" and the cheers got louder. "Finally," continued Anvil, his words barely got the women in the crowd to stop yelling. "Our last guest has interacted with the people of Novesa more than all of us put together. The leader of these rallies and fundraisers, Lady Raisha." The crowd erupted after Anvil's introduction. "Showtime," Raisha said with a smile as she looked back at Koré and Trey one more time. She leaned over so just her hair and eyes were poking out behind the wall, and the crowd cheered even louder. She stepped out onto the stage in front of the world without her mask for the first time. Her long orange hair flowed behind her as she strutted across the stage. Raisha walked so that she was behind the gargoyle and you couldn't even see her anymore. She peeked out from behind his large physique and smiled at the crowd, who laughed in unison. She peeked out the other side of the gargoyle's body to bring about more laughter. She rolled around the gargoyle's body and posed when she emerged in front of the crowd. She took big steps as she walked over to Jagger and faced him. The crowd grew silent as Raisha could hear a woman or two gasp. "Follow my lead," Raisha whispered to Jagger. She closed her eyes and puckered her lips. Jagger was tempted to deny her, but closed his eyes and braced himself. She leaned forward, but stopped right before their lips touched and playfully slapped Jagger in the face. Laughter and relief on behalf of the women in the crowd filled the arena. Raisha folded her arms and flipped her hair as she walked away from Jagger and approached the podium. Raisha lifted her finger and opened her mouth like she was about to say something, then whipped her head around to look at River. Using mostly her fingers, she waved at River. River just shook her head and the crowd laughed one more time. As Raisha readied herself to speak, the crowd began to chant her name. "Raisha, Raisha, Raisha," they went on. She let them chant for a few seconds, then lifted her arms to signal them to stop. "I woke up this morning grateful, blessed." You could hear a pin drop in the arena as Raisha spoke. "For years I wore a mask not only to hide who I was, but to show the people of Novesa that I was a force to be feared. This fear, while counterproductive when attending fundraisers like this one, was meant to prevent people from harming our beautiful planet." The crowd cheered again. It was to prevent those who were malicious from tainting our beautiful resource known as magic. The crowd chanted her name once again. She waited for them to stop before speaking. Then I started to hear the stories on the news. The same stories you were hearing. A blue elf by the name of Mavis started to terrorize the wonderful people of Novesa, stealing their magic by taking their lives. Raisha looked down and shook her head. It was then that I decided to remove the mask and show the people of Novesa my true self. Not because I have admitted defeat, oh no, quite the opposite. I removed the mask to show this elf named Mavis and all of those that try to hurt Novesa and its people that I don't need to strike fear in my enemies. That these enemies should be afraid of all of us. The crowd roared as Raisha pointed to her own face, then pointed at the crowd. We who wore masks, Raisha presented her colleagues behind her. We are powerful, yes, but the people of Novesa are just as powerful. They receive this power through the magic they acquire from the Welton Company. In return, the Welton Company receives its strength through the power of the people. Welton, 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 the crowd chanted. Raisha leaned her head back and closed her eyes as their chants rang through the arena. She let this go on for a while before opening her eyes and looking at the crowd once more. The moment she did, they grew silent. It is because of that strength that the Welton Company can do anything, including putting the minds of those who live in Novesa at ease. Raisha looked behind her at River and Jagger. River, Jagger, if you would, please. River and Jagger stepped through the curtain behind them instead of walking through where Koré and Trey were standing. When they reappeared, they were holding a blue elf by the arms. The elf was wrapped in cloth similar to how Mavis would dress. They threw the elf to the ground, and the gargoyle stood behind them. Mavis, said Trey. That's not him, said Koré. He's taller than that. Plus Mavis has yellow eyes. They had someone dress up as Mavis and paint their skin, suggested Trey. I present to you the culprit. Raisha pointed at the elf and the crowd cheered. Raisha made her way down and stood in front of the elf. This menace has tortured Novesa for the last time. Pick him up. The gargoyle lifted the elf by its arms and the long sleeves it was wearing slid up briefly, revealing Saji's markings on her skin. That's... Koré went to make a move, but Trey held her shoulder. Your friend? Asked Trey. Yes, we have to do something. Koré looked up at him. Raisha is unpredictable, mask or not. She could kill her. Calm down. A public execution would be suicide, even for the Welton Company. We need to be smart about this. Trey never took his eyes off Raisha as he tried to comfort Koré. We'll step in if it looks like it's going to get out of hand. Meanwhile, Tor was livid in the crowd. We have to get up there. Tor tried to push through, but the crowd was making it difficult. What did he say? Is he all right? Asked Destin. He tried to follow, but the crowd stopped him as well. He'll be fine. It was nice meeting you, Audra yelled as she was pushing against the crowd herself. We'll come back if we can. Audra ducked under someone's arm and forced her way through. Being smaller helped her navigate and get closer to Tor. Crowd grew more and more interested in what was happening on the stage. Everyone wanted to get a glimpse of the mysterious blue elf terrorizing Novesa. Each person trying to get a better view squeezed Audra and made her feel claustrophobic. The tightness made it impossible for Tor to get through. You can't go up there, Tor, Audra yelled just slightly behind him. We have to do something. Tor pushed someone out of the way, but the crowd pushed back. Making a scene doesn't help any of us. Audra got close enough to grab Tor's shirt. She held on tightly to keep close to him. What should we do with such a criminal? Raisha turned to face the crowd. What would you have us do? The crowd suddenly grew silent. One person in the crowd yelled, We want blood. And the rest began to chant, Blood, blood, blood. No, whispered Koré. The people of Novesa are not savages. Sadly, you might be wrong on this one, replied Trey. Blood? Asked Raisha. This man has taken a lot of it from our people, has he not? Raisha reached behind her and removed a large Jembaya dagger from her suit pants. She raised it up in the air, and the crowd grew louder and more savage. She turned to face Saji. What are you doing? Jagger was holding one of Saji's arms as he questioned Raisha. We were just supposed to put her on display, show that we caught Mavis. Raisha rolled her eyes. Don't be so boring, Jagger. People in the front of the crowd could hear Raisha yell. She lifted the knife to Saji's cheek and cut a small line into her face. Blood now on her blade, she turned and lifted it to the crowd once more. They cheered and continued their chant of blood, blood, blood. Koré removed her gun from its holster and was ready to move, but a large screen began to lower from the back of the stage, and Mr. Welton was on it. That is enough, Lady Raisha, said Mr. Welton. The crowd grew even louder at the sight of him. I apologize for not being there in person. Please tune in to the Barra show after the festivities for a very, very special interview. That being said, there are some things I would like to address the people of Novesa about. Take her to the back, River told the gargoyle. He grabbed Saji by the shoulders and forced her behind the curtains. No one in the crowd noticed as the lights had dimmed around the screen Mr. Welton was on. Too far, Jagger said to Raisha. That was too far. Raisha stuck out her tongue and she waved the dagger around in front of him. Just trying to give the people what they want. The Ether expansion was supposed to take years, hence my absence, but I come before you today to discuss that the expansion process has gone much more smoothly than we originally anticipated. Progress moved quickly, and we find ourselves on the brink of expansion. We would be going into the eastern half of Novesa by the end of the year. We could be going into the eastern half of Novesa by the end of the year. The crowd cheered. I have made preparations with my team to find candidates to be the first group to explore this new part of our world. Mavis was a loose end that we needed to tie up here on the western half before I could feel comfortable about expansion. Now that he is in our custody, I will be working closely with the guard to find the proper course of action to deal with him and anyone else that tries to upset the balance we have worked so hard to establish here. What was that? Koré approached the Welton Company members as they exited the stage through the same curtain the gargoyle took Saji. What was what? Asked Raisha. Made an example out of a criminal. The crowd loved it. That's not Mavis, said Koré. You have the wrong person. And how exactly would you know that, detective? River stepped between Raisha and Koré. Have you been working with the Blue Elves? That Blue Elf did help her escape in Seva, didn't she? Raisha was still holding her dagger and it made Koré uncomfortable. She smiled. Did you like the part where I pretended we didn't meet already? Koré debated grabbing her gun again, but River got closer to her face. You got your invite to the private fundraiser. If you want us to free this elf, I better see you there. River turned away from her and their shoulders collided. Raisha closed her eyes and started swaying back and forth like there was music playing as she waved her dagger around. See you there, detective. Raisha danced away as she followed River. Jagger was watching as he locked eyes with Koré for a moment before he also followed River out. Should we follow them? Asked Trey. I don't know. Koré's heart was beating fast in her chest. The Weltons were practically untouchable. Hearing Mr. Welton's loud booming voice continue to address the crowd in the background just made her feel small and defeated. River and Raisha's strength alone would be difficult for them to compete with. We have to figure out a way to save Saji before they kill her and pretend it's Mavis. Trey looked down at her again. Then I guess we have to attend the next fundraiser.